It is just after 6 p.m. on May 6, 2025, and I'm going to call the City of Iowa City formal meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Alter.
Here.
Burgess.
Here.
Hermson.
Here.
Mo.
Here.
Select.
Yeah.
Teague.
Here.
Wyline.
Here.
Want to welcome all of you to your City Hall, and to anyone that is joining us virtual, welcome as well. We're going to move on to our proclamations, item 2. 2A is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is going to be read by Councilor Burgess.
Whereas the National Alliance on Mental Illness, or NAMI, is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization dedicated to building better lives for the millions of Americans affected by mental illness. And whereas the face of mental illness isn't some stranger, it is our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends, our families, and sometimes ourselves. And whereas mental illness does not discriminate, it affects children, adults, and people of every ethnic, socioeconomic, religious, or political background. And whereas 1 of 5 adults in the United States experiences a diagnosable mental disorder, and 1 in 5 youth, age 13 to 18, experiences a severe mental disorder in a given year. And whereas suicide is the second leading cause of death for America's youth ages 15 to 24, and the vast majority of those who die by suicide have a mental illness that is often undiagnosed or untreated, and whereas half of all chronic mental illness begins by age 14 and 3/4 begins by age 24. Therefore, treating cases early could address and reduce disability before mental illnesses become more severe. And whereas NAMI Johnson County will hold its annual walk at 9 a.m. on Saturday, May 10th, that's this Saturday, at the Terry Trueblood Recreation Area in Iowa City. The walk aims to inspire and initiate a community conversation about the impact that mental illness has on every part of our collective lives, from family systems to primary health care, to the education system, to the business community, and beyond. Now, therefore, I, on behalf of Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim May 2025 as Mental Health Awareness Month, and urge all residents to increase the awareness and understanding of mental health and be informed of the treatment options available in our county for individuals with mental illness. And this proclamation today is being received by Mary Issa, NAMI of Johnson County's Executive Director.
I'm not Mary, but I am Joanna Sinwell. I'm president of the board of directors at NAMI here in Johnson County. Thank you for your warm welcome and your appreciation for what we do here. And I'm allowing us to do a little promo of our walk on Saturday. So please join us. I think you all should have a team. At 9 o'clock, there'll be a band. There's lots of fun going on. So please come. I did want to point something out that you may not know about NAMI of Johnson County, and that is that we are held as leaders across the state for our peer services. We have a drop-in center down here on Gilbert. We have remote peer services offering, and now we have a peer at the hospital, the hospitalization program. So please come on Saturday, help us raise funds. Just like every nonprofit right now, our funding is in jeopardy. And this is going to help us keep up these great services. So thanks to all of you.
And thank you. To be is National Public Works Week, whereas Public Works professionals of Iowa City Public Works Department focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are vital importance to a sustainable and resilient community and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the city of Iowa City. And whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services cannot be provided without the dedicated efforts of our public work professionals who are responsible for maintaining, improving, and protecting our transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential for our community members. And whereas it is in the public interest for the community members and civic leaders to gain knowledge of and maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in Iowa City. And whereas the year of 2025 marks the 65th annual National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association, the theme is People, Purpose, Presence. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim the week of May 18th to May 24th, 2025, to be National Public Works Week in Iowa City, and urge all community members and civic organizations to recognize the substantial contributions which public work professionals make every day to protect our health, safety, comfort, and advancing quality of life for all. And receiving this proclamation is Ron Kanoki, our Public Works Director. I could have used the extra steps.
Good evening, Mayor Teague and council members. On behalf of more than 160 dedicated professionals across the Iowa City Public Works Department, thank you for this National Public Works Week proclamation and for your continued support. The skilled individuals in our engineering, equipment, resource management, streets, wastewater, and water divisions embody this year's National Public Works Week theme, People, Purpose, Presence. From tackling everyday challenges such as material shortages to responding swiftly to extreme weather or water main breaks, our team remains ready and committed to serving the community. This year, we will showcase the Iowa City Landfill and Recycling Center during an open house on Sunday, May 18th from 1 to 3 p.m. The address of that is 3900 Hebel Avenue Southwest. This event will feature a touch a truck display of city vehicles and equipment, educational activities, and refreshments for all. This open house will kick off National Public Works Week in Iowa City. We warmly invite you and all community members to join us as we celebrate the vital work of public works professionals. Thank you.
Thank you. 2C is Older American Proclamation Month, and this is going to be read by our very own Mayor Pro Tem Sala.
Thank you. Whereas Johnson County Livable Community for Successful Aging seeking to cooperatively celebrate the lives and the benefit of old adults in the community throughout the county. And whereas May is Older Americans Month, a time for us to recognize and honor the older adult of Iowa City and their influence on every facet of American society. And whereas older Americans improve our communities through intergenerational relationship, community services, civic engagement, and many other activities. And whereas the Older Americans 2025 theme is Flip the Script on Aging, focusing on transforming how society perceives, talks about, and approaches aging. It is encourage individuals and communities to challenge stereotype and dispel misconceptions. And whereas the city of Iowa City must ensure that older Americans have the resources and the support needed to stay involved in their communities, reflecting our commitment in inclusivity and connectedness. Now, therefore, I, Mazhar Saleh, have, on behalf of Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2025 to be Older Americans Month in the city of Iowa City, and urge all residents to celebrate the profound positive impact of meaningful interaction and social connection with seniors for the entire community. And here to accept is Haley from Johnson County Social Services and Kathleen Bresser, Senior Center Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Mayor Teague, our council members, and the City of Iowa City for this incredibly meaningful recognition of May 2025 as Older Americans Month. I'm Haley Crabb. I am a member of the policy board with Johnson County Livable Community for Successful Aging, which I can't believe I strung those together correctly. I usually mix them up in some way. I'm also joined by Trail of Johnson County and the Iowa City Senior Center. This year's theme is Flip the Script on Aging, so we're really working to challenge these outdated stereotypes around aging and older adults in our community. Instead, we want to highlight the strength, the wisdom, and the vibrancy that older adults bring to our community each and every day. Whether it's through volunteering, mentoring, staying civically engaged, their contributions help shape a more inclusive, connected, and compassionate community, which we need more than ever. The policy board is working hard to finish a community-wide survey of older adults to help inform our next strategic planning, and we look forward to sharing those results with the City Council. We thank you for your continued support and commitment to honoring and empowering older residents in Iowa City. I hope we can all take this opportunity to learn from, connect with, and celebrate older Americans who make our community stronger. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last but not least proclamation is Provider Appreciation Day, read by Councilor Alter.
Whereas quality early childhood education is a valuable investment in our children's future, and whereas childcare workforce professionals play an important role in cultivating, supporting, and educating young children in warm, loving, and culturally competent environments at home and center-based settings to meet the needs of families. And whereas Iowa City recognizes the childcare workforce as essential for our economy that allows families access to the care they needed so they can work. And whereas by calling attention to the importance of quality childcare services for all children and families in our community, the Iowa City childcare workforce is working with 4C's Community Coordinated Childcare and other organizations statewide to enhance the quality and availability of such services. And whereas the Iowa City Council will join families and organizations nationwide in recognizing early care teachers and educators for their efforts in caring for the children of working parents and providing them with quality early childhood experiences. And whereas Iowa City residents are encouraged to recognize the child care workforce throughout the state for their dedication to providing quality early care and learning services and for the important role that they play in our children's future. Now, therefore, I, Megan Alter, on behalf of Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim May 9th, 2025 to be Provider Appreciation Day in Iowa City, Iowa. And accepting is Missy Forbes with 4Cs of Johnson County. She is the executive director. And Regina Johnson. Accepting also are Claire Bartolone, Kayla, Marissa, Scout, Gidget, Lily, and Journey. I don't know if they made the journey, but our congratulations are to all of them.
Thank you.
Yes, our crew of providers dropped like flies a little bit, but I would like to thank the City Council for recognizing May 9th as Provider Appreciation Day. Child care is the foundation upon which all other industry rely, and the teachers that choose to work in this field are remarkable individuals. The work is hard, and the profession often goes unrecognized in meaningful ways, which is why recognizing the child care workforce on this day is so incredibly important to me. I asked my friends from Loving Arms, and there is one here now that remains. Oh, there is some back there too, waving, for being recognized for the work that they do. This program in particular has seen some trying situations over the past 6 months. They're currently in the process of transitioning their program into the Reach for Your Potential's Future Center, and so I wanted to be sure to recognize them, as I know that they have often felt a little unforgotten in some of the processes of the transition. These teachers are representatives of a cross-section of all the teachers who participate in the wage enhancement program, which the city generously funds. And to help, the reason why you do that is to help raise the wages of the childcare workforce, which is the lowest paid profession in the state of Iowa. By your participation in its funding, you are demonstrating the importance of this work, and I thank you for being on the side of innovative ways to support this workforce. 76% of parents in Johnson County work. Without the childcare workforce, they would be unable to do so. A day without childcare would have an insurmountable impact on our city's economy. Again, on behalf of 4Cs, I thank you for recognizing Provider Appreciation Day this week, and I thank these providers, these teachers, for the work that you all do for the youngest students and Iowa City residents. Thank you all.
Thank you. And Regina Johnson, I invite you up to give some words as well.
So I can't top that. I didn't write anything. I didn't even plan to speak, but I do appreciate everyone for recognizing childcare providers. Some days we have hard days, some days are easy. I started my daycare back in 2017 in Dubuque, Iowa. I moved here last year of August. It's been a little struggle to build my daycare, seeing that I was very known back in Dubuque and I'm new here. But providers definitely need more recognition because sometimes we don't feel as loved as like big daycares. So this is my passion. I love working with kids, something I always wanted to do. And I'm very thankful that you guys have Child Care Providers Appreciation Day. It means a lot, and thank you for having me.
Thank you. The words were from the heart. It was perfect. Yes. All right. We're going to move on to, thank you all for coming for the proclamation. We're going to move on to our consent agenda, items 3 through 6. Could I get a motion, please?
So moved, Mo.
Second, Harmson.
All right. And anyone from the public like to address this, any item that is on our consent agenda? If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. Seeing no one in person or online, council discussion.
I just wanted to make note of item 6H, which is the training annex project for the animal shelter. Just to extend thank you to staff for working with the Friends of the Animal Shelter. I know some people who volunteer there, and they're very excited about this. It's going to be really helpful all around for safety for the animals, as well as the volunteers and the staff who work with them, to have a common area that they can use as an annex, as well as additional space for training and whatnot. And I brought it out mainly because it's one of those things where it doesn't really go commented on, but these are little yet big things that help make our community better. And I know that the animal shelter is top notch and wonderful, and it's just a shout out of appreciation for the work that's going on there.
Great. All right. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mo?
Yes.
Sola?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We're on to item number 7, which is our community comment. This is an opportunity for anyone that wants to talk on a topic that is not on our agenda. And the council won't be able to engage with you because it's not properly noticed, but we welcome everyone that wants to speak on an item that is not on our agenda to come up at this time. And please state your name and city you're from. There also is a sign-in right there, or if you got a name sticker in the back, you can drop it in the basket. Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from.
I'm Chris Lawrence. I'm from Iowa City for at least, since 2006.
Great.
I'm Judy Fowle. I've been in Iowa City about 40 years.
Welcome.
So she has me beat. I'm the current chair of the Airport Commission. We wanted to give you an update on our annual report and what we've been up to. The airport's undertaken a number of projects in recent years that have enhanced safety. We've modernized infrastructure, and we've increased the utility of the airport. A lot of these projects have been funded by the bipartisan infrastructure law that most people are aware of, FAA grants, state DOT grants. and local matching funds, of course. So some of the projects we've undertaken recently, we did a realignment of our runway 1230, which include the installation of equipment that enhances safety during approach and landing. We've installed LED lighting on all of our runways. So aside from the rotating beacon that we have that you probably see at night, all the surface lighting at the airport is now LED. So that really reduces our electricity consumption. And then most recently, we installed a solar array. It aligns really nicely with the city's climate goals. It certainly helps us on our operational budget. To give you an idea of how impactful that has been, between October and December of 2024, our average electricity bill was about $750 a month. And after the installation of the array, we're now averaging $165 a month. Honestly, that's about my house in the winter, if I think about it. The impact of the budget's been immediate. It helps to ensure that we can continue to self-fund our operational budget. That's something that we're very proud of, that we've been doing since 2018. And we expect the solar array to save us somewhere around $10,000 per year. So that's been really impactful, and that was funded with bipartisan infrastructure law funds. Events that have been happening at the airport. We continue to partner with outside groups to bring people to the airport. That's one of our strategic goals, bring people to their airport. We have the Optimist Club Fly-In Drive-In Pancake Breakfast every August. That draws a large crowd. EAA Young Eagles takes children up in airplane rides so they can experience aviation. Kids generally love airplanes, so it's a good way to get them involved. And then we also had a recent Ford Tri-Motor visit, plane from 1929 that the EAA brought out. They did flights. It helps support a great organization in the aviation community. And then we have a partnership with the Summer of the Arts drive-in movies that we do every year. Future stuff we're looking at doing, we're looking at an airport ramp expansion for additional parking, runway maintenance and preservation so we can protect the assets that we have. And we're also looking at terminal area redevelopment and opportunities there. So that's a highlight of what's been going on at the airport. Right. I invite all of you to come out. We can give you a tour. We can show you the airport. And I extend the invitation to the public as well.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Oh, we're not supposed to be clapping. I'm sorry. We're just listening.
It felt like a proclamation. Huh?
Yes. They're commissioners. They were given a report. Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from. You have up to 3 minutes.
Missy Forbes with Iowa City, and I'm the executive director at Four Cs. If you remember earlier in January when I was here, my concern was keeping our Four Cs aid to agency funding static, contrary to what city staff had recommended. At that time, I felt comfortable with that number, but as we get closer to FY26, and I've had the opportunity to look at my budget more closely, I know that number won't be enough. And so I wanted to come back and talk about that a little bit. Since January, we've had a new staff member join Four Cs, and exponentially, she has done a lot more in her short time with Four Cs to really increase her workload. In Iowa City alone, and these numbers are as of since January, we've had 5 times as many startups that she's interacted with, and those are services that we assist with helping people start their own childcare programs. And we are, so we've had 5 times as many startups. We've had 3 times as much engagement with Starting Strong providers, and those are low-income individuals that are caring for low-income children that meet with us on a regular basis. 3 Iowa City providers were in jeopardy of losing registration, but those programs were remained in standing with HHS because of Allison's hands-on intervention and triaging those situations so that those businesses could remain viable. In April alone, we've had 7 providers reach out to Four Cs to ask for assistance with writing grants, writing policies and procedures for their programs, and to help with marketing. This includes long-standing programs that we don't traditionally or that we haven't engaged with as much recently because they usually can roll on their own. These numbers don't include don't include examples of some of the innovative program that we're getting ready to roll out. So without the funding allocation that I requested on behalf of Four Cs, we would be unable to continue this forward momentum once our contract closes for our ARPA contract in the first quarter of FY26. We're also unable to access CDBG funding once that runs out. Our contract ends in May of 2026 with that. $2,000 for a program that supports childcare programs, the workforce, and students from birth isn't enough. Four Cs has never been bold enough to ask for significant funding to continue our work, but I'm here today to tell you that if we don't, then we can't. And there's no other organization in Iowa City that is doing exactly what we do. It isn't duplicative, it's supplemental and supportive, and it's needed. Without it, Four Cs can't continue to grow in Iowa City, and our work will become limited at a time when it's needed more than ever. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Mary Gravitt, and I'm here to complain about my landlord, Keystone. I've been complaining to Keystone that the thermostat in my apartment does not work, and they keep telling me it does. I suffer all through the winter at temperatures from 90 to 100 degrees. Somehow, I cannot dial it down. I dialed it down past 55 as far as it will go. So when I complained, my doctor told me to complain to Keystone about it and to get in touch with the city licenses inspection, housing inspection. So I complained, and they turned the heat off. Now, I live in a basement apartment. It's always cold. It's always cool, and plus it fronts in the shade. And when I get up in the morning, I have to depend on the sun to warm my apartment up, and the sun can only do but so much. So I complained to Stan, who's in charge of the Towncrest area, and he seems to be in cahoots with Keystone. I told him that the thermostat doesn't work, so he came in, I suppose, with this plumber. And this plumber measures the party heat on the party wall at 75 degrees. Now, if I was a rat living in the wall, hey, I'll be living fine. But I'm freezing all night, and I'm freezing in the morning. I know summer is coming, but I need some heat, and I need a new thermostat. You just can't deny me that it doesn't work when I'm there. Oh, sometimes 24 hours. If I just go out for my medical appointments and so forth. But Keystone has changed. I don't know if they want to be slum landlords or what, but I complain to them, and they send that plumber, and I'm telling you, that plumber is not fit to put a toilet seat on. And when every time he fixes something, I have to call the maintenance, and they come and fix it. So the plumber, he doesn't know anything about heating. He just knows that he's a plumber, I suppose, and I'm nursing my sink faucet because I don't want him to come in and cause leaks in the kitchen. So Keystone is being unfair to me. I've been there over 20 years. I always pay my rent. Only time I missed a payment is when they didn't tell me their moves. I'm sending a check to the wrong address. So I need heat. I'm 82 years old. I need heat. I'm not talking about anything that's inappropriate for a landlord to do. He's supposed to supply the heat because that's in
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
for the record, will you state what city you're from?
Oh, Iowa City. I've been
Thank
here
you.
over, I
Thank
don't
you,
know, I've
thank
been
you.
here since 1989.
And you can just throw that entire thing in the basket. You don't have to undo it.
Back here?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else who want to address any item that is not on our agenda at this time? Seeing no one else, I'm going to close the community comment period. We're moving on to items 8, which is planning and zoning matters. 8A is rezoning North Governor Street. Ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 5.49 acres of property located between North Dodge and North Governor Streets from medium-density single-family residential zone, high-density single-family residential zone, medium-density multifamily residential zone, and multifamily residential zone to high-density single-family residential zone with a planned development overlay for approximately 0.17 acres, and to medium-density multifamily residential zone with a planned development overlay for approximately 5.32 acres. We're going to continue the public hearing, and I know that the council and P&Z met earlier today just to talk through some of the P&Z rationale for how they voted. Wanted to just offer any opportunity for council to ask any questions to our staff at this time before we move on to public comment.
At our last meeting, I had asked a question about if we could, as counselors, add any non-substantive changes. And at that point, it was a little unclear if we could. Now that we've had our consult with P&Z and understand what they thought and they said, do we have any flexibility to add anything to the plan that's before us?
Excuse me. If you did, I think it would probably have to go back to planning and zoning, particularly if they haven't discussed it. Planning and zoning, for example, one of the things that came up at the work session was a discussion about tiered retaining walls and so forth instead of a kind of large monolithic face, and they had indicated they had not talked about that. So that's the kind of thing that probably would be appropriate to go back to planning and zoning. But in answer to your question, could you add it? Yes, but you would probably want to go through them first.
Yep.
Hearing no other questions from council, I did want to see if the applicant is here and if they wanted to make any comments at this time. Welcome.
Good evening. John Marner with MMS Consultants. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again. I appreciated all the conversations and discussion at the work session earlier. I don't have anything else to add. I'm available to answer some of the questions that came up. If there are any from council, I'd be happy to speak to some of those if you would like me to.
Great. Thank you.
One thing, so not necessarily putting into the rezoning and the PUD, not necessarily putting something in there that is a requirement, but separately asking staff to look into other things. That's a different story, right?
Well, I mean, if council is to approve a rezoning, then you need to allow what's allowed in that zone. Oftentimes there have been concerns about a pretty picture being shown to council, and they envision that this and this exactly is what's going to be built, and that isn't always the case. So unless it's a major site, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's staff review that goes on to make sure everything is compliant, but unless it's a major site plan that goes back to P&Z or something, then probably not.
I'm thinking more of considering things like if the council were to decide that we wanted to ask staff to look into, say, a trail that connects Happy Hollow Park to the development, or talking about staff look into traffic control, or what's our authority there, it being a state highway and everything, and sidewalk talk, just getting some solid numbers other than like it'll be hard and it'll be expensive or something like that, so we can actually put down like it will cost this to put the trail in, here's different proposals, here's how you could do it, here's what we could do with the sidewalk. It's I feel like these are small things that are not unreasonable to ask. You know what I mean?
I do.
Yeah.
In answer to your question, can you ask staff to look at that? I think the answer is yes, but there's a significant but, and that's that it's not a requirement that it'll be imposed unless it's part of the CZA. And as I mentioned with Councilor Moe, if you want to have a requirement in the CZA, then you would probably need to send it back to P&Z and have them weigh in on it.
You mean even as small as the sidewalk have to go back to the...
Well, when you say as small as the sidewalk, if you're talking about a sidewalk that connects Happy Hollow Park with that, if it's along North Governor, even that is a little challenging because of the topography, but it would be especially challenging to do it straight, so to speak. And, obviously we've got a lot of the engineers here. They could speak in greater detail than I could about that. So my point is, I'm not sure how big or large of a thing that would be. That might be a significant engineering challenge.
I think the question is whether it's a city, not in the CZ.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood your question, Mayor Pro Tem. Your question was whether you can just ask staff to look into those things?
Yeah, to look on adding, for example, sidewalk or do this. Yeah.
Yes, staff can look into that, but again, I would just want to make sure, I don't want to set you folks up for disappointment that if it doesn't end up coming to fruition. It might be that they look into it, they ask for it, and they find that it's an engineering impossibility or practicality or something. So I just don't want to...
Sure.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So you think that adding a stipulation of a trail connecting the park to the development constitute a substantial change?
I think in this case it would. It wouldn't always, but given the topography that's present, I think it probably would.
Okay.
I may be misunderstanding a little bit or conflating different conversations in the past. It makes a big difference when whether the council is indicating you want that to be the responsibility of the applicant, then it needs to go through the P&Z channels. If outside of this rezoning, you want to direct staff to look at a sidewalk infill project through our capital improvement program, you can do that. That's what we've historically done in the past. We've used the example, I think, in one of the first meetings on this topic of Calder Park, in which the city is now constructing a trail to connect a park to a new subdivision. That was not the applicant's responsibility in that case. So it makes a difference in whether you're asking whether you can impose that requirement upon the applicant, or if you're just asking staff to look at that and return to you at some point in the future with our evaluation of the feasibility and cost of that sidewalk.
Yeah, so...
it's just...
yeah, so thank you very much. And it's hard for me to know, with something that possibly might cross the line into the private property of the development, if something at all touches the development, would that have to be part of the existing rezoning plan, or could the city still engage in building that infrastructure?
We could still engage in building that infrastructure. We do that kind of thing with some frequency. If you authorize us to engage in property acquisition, engineers let us know what we need in order for the project to go, and then we secure it.
I guess what I'm getting at is I think people, if this is going to move forward, I think that people fear that when they bring things up and then we say, yeah, we'll look into it, and then nothing comes to fruition and they don't have any updates. So what I'm asking is there a concrete way that we can make ourselves accountable and have some type of recheck-in at some point for the people who have brought up these concerns, and just putting something written down in concrete so they know that it's not something we're just going to forget about or ignore, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but I think normally, correct me if I'm wrong, normally like sidewalks when new development is happening is responsibility of the developer.
That's right, under greenfield development, that's right.
Yes, and I would love for the city to do things for the developer if the developer are doing something for the residents, so like some kind of exchange. But not since we don't do that with another developer. Why should we do it for this?
For what it's worth, I believe that the developer, I'm going to look at our planning staff, I think that they're installing sidewalk on North Governor as part of the project. That's a kind of akin, I think, Mayor Pro Tem, to what you're describing.
There is one in Governor already.
There is not. They're installing.
It will be on the proposed project, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, it will. There will be a sidewalk installed for the length of the property as part of this project.
And then it,
But there is no one for the park.
right, it
That's correct.
terminates at a park at a steep
Makes
thing. And I think
sense,
what we're
yeah.
all getting at is we would just love a design that
Right.
somehow connects the park to the newly designed sidewalk. We would just like to say that that's a thing we expect.
Yeah.
And that perhaps you, instead of doing a flared edge exit entrance, you separate entrance and exit onto North Dodge so it becomes less difficult to go the wrong direction. Some very simple things that I would hope that, I don't know, where, again, I'm pushing up against with the limits of our ability to just get this done.
Outside of the rezoning context here, if you'd like staff to come back to you with those options, we can do so. It will take a little time. This is something that we would hire externally to do. So we would hire an external professional to come in and help us evaluate design options and cost out that sidewalk. We can do that. And certainly you all can hold us accountable by placing that on a pending work session list or something like that, so you know that we will return to you with those options. And then you can decide if if the cost or the sacrifice of trees or whatever the issue may be is worth building that sidewalk. That can be your call.
And you're saying like any major thing like retaining wall or like, reducing maybe the number of the apartment and everything, that's not something we can just say here. It have to go back to the planning and zoning.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question, whether we can reduce the number of units, is that what you said?
Or doing like building a retaining wall or doing like reducing the number of the apartment on the unit. I mean, all these changes is not something like we can just say now and vote for it. We'd have to go back to the planning and zoning.
I agree with you to the extent that we could not just say it now. The number of units in particular was a highly negotiated number. And so I don't think we have a lot of flexibility to alter that. And I'm sorry, I've forgotten the second part of your question.
Retaining wall, yeah.
The retaining wall. Now, they have a retaining wall. Are you thinking of a different one? Maybe.
They talked about layered.
Yeah, the
The
fact that it's
options.
very tall and
tall
that
one.
they asked for R3 screening, and we suggested
Yes,
maybe there's multiple
exactly.
mechanisms to improve that, or potentially make it an amenity for the park. It just feels like there's an interface between a public property and a development that hasn't been
Sure.
made yet.
Right, I understand.
Exactly.
Well, I would suggest one of two things. One, I see Mr. Marner is here, and I suspect he could perhaps in part at least answer the question as to why that other alternative may or may not work. And if you folks, after hearing that answer, feel like that's something you would want to insist on, then I think we'd be sending it back to P&C.
I'd be happy to speak to that. So I do think there is an opportunity to provide tiered walls. We had a concept similar to that early on in the revision or in the submittal and review process. There's some issues with the existing sanitary sewer easement that go through there. So we changed it to the single wall that you see on the current application. I do think there's an opportunity to revisit that in light of the discussion, and I think that's something we would be happy to do. I can't guarantee that it's 100% feasible. I can say that we would be happy to do that. And I actually mentioned that to the applicant prior to this, and he said, we'll try to figure something out with the retaining walls to address some of those concerns.
Which retaining wall are we talking about? Just on the south boundary?
Correct, the one on the
Adjacent
south
to the
boundary
park.
where the recommendation in the current CZA requires the S3 screening.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, if city council wants to put some type of requirement on the zoning, it would almost 100% of the time have to go back to P&Z.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
if, the conditional zoning agreement has been signed, and so if you're talking about something that's enforceable, they would need to be included in the CZA, and that means they would need to go back.
So, but if the developer comes to y'all and says, just their own fruition, and just says, we want to do this stepped tiered thing and we do not think it's a substantial change, then would it be up to city staff to decide if that is a substantial change and if that needs to go back to rezoning?
I missed it. In your hypothetical, was the developer agreeing to do the terrace?
The developer is proposing it.
He's proposing it? Oh.
Yeah.
Well, I'd have to go back and look at the CZA again to remind myself as to, I remember there was the component of the screening, which was addressed in our work session, but I can't remember if there was anything about the structure of that, so I'm not sure I can answer that off the fly. Sorry.
I guess I just want to try to give an indication about, where a lot of the power resides, a lot of the power to make some type of changes if they are within the scope of feasibility. It seems like that is heavily geared towards the private developer or whoever owns the land eventually.
Well, certainly we can't impose anything that the developers aren't willing to agree to. That said, you don't have to rezone it. And so that's why there's typically, especially with an OPD like this, there's usually a little more flexibility and, a negotiation with staff to address neighbors' concerns, especially like the view from the park, that kind of thing. This is the result of a pretty long process in which planning staff have worked with the developers for quite some time.
Okay, now if we decide on something that you said it have to go back to the planning and zoning, how that's going to happen? Like, just we say, okay, now we're gonna take it to the planning and zoning, or we have to vote, or what? How we do that?
If you wanted to add a condition to the conditional zoning agreement, you would probably want to make an oral motion tonight to a council meeting in the future that gives enough time for staff to review council's proposal and for planning and zoning to weigh in at one of their meetings. They meet on the first and third Wednesdays of the month, typically. And so you'd want to kind of allow for all that time. But yes, I mean, this would be the time for you folks to let us know what it is that you would want to achieve.
Yeah, get you. I just want to know the timeline. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions by council to either staff or to the applicant representative? All right. We're going to open it up to anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time. If you are online, please raise your virtual hand and I will acknowledge you. Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Megan Vollenwaiter. I'm a resident of Iowa City, but I'm not a resident of the North Side, so weigh my feedback accordingly. So watching this process play out has been actually really frustrating. There are a lot of details that still need to be worked out, and there are a lot of valid concerns about the sidewalk ending in the middle of nowhere. Well, not really in the middle of nowhere, but at a place where it can't really be connected to other infrastructure like that. But I feel like I couldn't help but think of a potential future where, especially regarding the traffic, where this development actually reduces the number of cars traveling on Dodge Street or Governor, because I'm guessing if people are perceiving those streets as being very busy when in fact their capacity is less than half of what its max is, a lot of those people are probably traveling to their homes in other communities. And if they could live in Iowa City where they work, they might not be leaving town or coming into town in the morning. Also, it's in a place where someone could walk to work, conceivably, if they work downtown, very, very close. They might bike, whereas before they had to drive. So that was just something that really stuck out to me. Also, I live in an HOA that's sort of several multiplex buildings with 94 units of 2 bedrooms mostly, sometimes 3. And the traffic is really not what you would think. It's pretty rare that I actually encounter another car coming into or out of the garage in our little, driveway area. And I think that's probably not going to be as much of a concern, at least. And I live on like the ragged edge of the east side. It's not walking distance to anywhere. So lots of drivers. Another thing that did stand out was that the pedestrians don't have a cross, because there's sidewalk on one side, but not on the side that the building is actually going to be on. That actually it might be wise to look at putting one of those pedestrian crossings with the like yellow flashing lights where you press the button. I could totally see that being a concern, but I'm fearful that we're going to let perfect be the enemy of good here. We could really use 84 units of any size, of any price range in the city, and I hope that this is approved in some form with some degree of density. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? If so, please raise your virtual hand online. If you're present, please raise your hand at this time. Please come up. Please state your name and city you're from.
Hi. Sharon DeGraw, Iowa City. I have handouts again.
Okay. Can I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved, Mo.
Second. Burgess.
Moved by Mo, seconded by Burgess. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. And we'll start her time at this juncture.
So the handout that I've passed out is one showing car crashes during 2014 to 2024 on the 900 block of Governor Street. And you can see where the building 911 North Governor Street is where the majority of the accidents have taken place. So in my mind, when I think about this area, I agree with everyone that there's a perfect area to develop and it should be redeveloped. But it's an island within Highway 1 traveling south and Highway 1 traveling north, where the entrance exit to the development will be is at the very bottom of the hill, and people travel in excessive speeds typically. Like when I'm crossing to go over to Hickory Hill, it's usually 35 to 40 that people are oh, you got an extra one. So that my concern is about safety. And when I say that the number of apartments and cars going in and out is too much, the dots there are one way in which I can show you that while it looks great on paper, the context of actually living in the neighborhood and experiencing the car speeds, the crashes, noticing the lack of sidewalks, the lack of crosswalks, like the last person said, those are big deals that you shouldn't just pass this today and hope that those things fall into place. Maybe I'll pivot and also say that I saw the letter that was from Mr. Barkalow offering the properties for $9 million. That seems too high, but doing a tally of the assessed value of all those parcels, it comes to $4,640,000. So if the city were to entertain that seems reasonable. If you were to consider taking possession of the properties and if you were willing to sell for that price. I think that's probably about it. Thanks. And
Thank you.
I hope that you don't vote in favor of it today, because I think there's more negotiation that you could do. And also, I viewed the part about a lawsuit as a threat. I think that you've got a lot on your side to vote it down. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? Welcome. Please state your name and city you're from.
Thank you. Good evening, councilors. I'm Audrey Barrick from Iowa City. Having attended the P&Z consultation just earlier this afternoon, I just want to make one reflection about that. In case you were left with the impression that just a few neighbors had objected. As P&Z stated, I want to clarify that we had an absolutely resounding, overwhelming majority of eligible landowners petition against this rezoning. By my own calculation, it neared 40% of the adjacent landowners, and that's a very, very high tally, almost unheard of. And when you think about the fact that most of the land to the south was excluded from petitioning because that is Happy Hollow Park, and the north area is owned by developers, we achieved 40% of the landowners on both North Dodge Street and Governor Street within 200 feet of this proposed development. And so I just want to say that we're not just a few neighbors, but we are the city, those of us who objected. And then earlier this afternoon, but too late, I think, to make it into your packets, I sent another letter signed by 5, myself and 4 other neighbors, and this has to do with the critical slopes that are impacted by this development. And I just want to go over a few parts of it because it's really too technical to digest on the spot. So I want to encourage you all to take a look at that letter because it has to do with zoning law, and we do need to be following the law. Staff has stated they support this rezoning because it allows application of the modern zoning ordinance, including parts of the ordinance that apply to environmentally sensitive features. In this case, the critical steep slopes and the grove of trees. Yet when you compare this proposal to the language of the zoning code, this plan clearly does not protect and minimize the disturbance of the environmentally sensitive features of the R3B zone property or the additional land at 905 and 909 North Governor, which is not subject to the court ruling. The intent of the zoning law is to permit and define the reasonable use of properties that contain environmentally sensitive features. I encourage you to take a look at the ways in which this development is not consistent with zoning law, and that's detailed in the letter you would have just received. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. And will you place your sticker in that basket, please? Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else like to address this topic? Seeing no one in person or online, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to give first consideration, please?
So moved, Burgess.
Second, Harmson.
All right, council discussion.
I'm just going to reiterate what P&Z had laid out, as well as a comment by Megan Vollmer, that we have a need for housing stock of all kinds. We also got the presentation by our consultants about doing the comprehensive plan, and that we're going to need 384 units per year to be able to keep up with our anticipated growth. And this has, as far as location, we had a conversation about it being prime. I fear very much that if we don't rezone this, we're going to let this continue to be a vacant lot or vacant building that has been here since I moved here in 1995. And this fits with our strategic plan for infill, density. We have the opportunity perhaps for affordable housing, and we also need all kinds of housing. This is near a grocery store, it's on the bus line, it's near downtown, it's near an elementary school, it's near medical facilities, it's right next to a park. I think that it makes sense as a complement to find out about the feasibility of what the city could do in terms of connectivity, engineering-wise and what have you. But that's not something that we need to hold up this rezoning in order to do that other. And I think absolutely transparency, accountability, let's look into it and find out the feasibility of it so that we can try and make this connection and to make this an even better thing. So anyway, I will be voting yes for the rezoning. I don't see that this is something that we can pass up in that regard.
I think that what I heard from zoning and what I hear from you is the density is really not the primary concern of P&Z and maybe not this council, but I'm curious to hear from everybody else. It's this, some of the very specifics of this proposal. And I think that the key for me is the fact that we have these R3B zones that we have little or no control over, that we could end up with really, really bad things with absolutely no control, no sidewalks, no storm sewers, no real restrictions on setbacks and screening. And I think that this is an opportunity to make that really bad zoning go away. And so I'm supportive of moving something forward. I just, right now, listening to P&Z and my own notes, is I have 3 issues that I wish we could just subtly tweak, and I want to hear from the rest of you how important those are. And to me, that's that retaining wall, it's the sidewalk, and it's the sort of inflow outflow traffic. Like, these seem to be simple things to me, where you can, you know, when you turn out, you must go the correct direction, and when you turn in, you must be coming from the correct direction. And I also hear the statement of let's not let perfect be the enemy of the good. And so I'm interested to hear what my fellow councilors have to say about those, what I think are the 3 snags.
I can go ahead and jump in. I think the traffic flow, that's kind of in terms of, like, you know, people live in apartments on one-ways, so that doesn't, you know, I mean, they have to deal with that anyway. That's not a new thing. In terms of, I think, you know, the amount of traffic and the fact that there's a lot of capacity, I think sometimes, and I'm trying to remember now, I feel like we've talked about this right after I got on council, and our traffic expert isn't in the room, but the idea that one of the things that slows people down is greater volume. Like, if there's more, when there's fewer cars, people have a tendency to hit the gas because it's more wide open. And that is a problem. Like, you know, I've driven down North Dodge and stuff too, and I know there's that one spot there where there's that permanent, this is how fast you're going, and I think that does help. I see brake lights in front of me, and that reminds me to tap mine because you're coming down that hill. And so definitely, you know, getting people to slow down through there is you know, it's a well-taken point. In terms of the sidewalks and stuff, before our last meeting, I hadn't been out to Happy Hollow Park since my kids had gotten a little bit older, so I hadn't been out there in a few years. So I went back and kind of walked through that property and kind of walked kind of up to the property in question. And one of the things I noticed was, and I hear what some staff had said about the sidewalk there that would be on Governor heading south there along that one edge of Happy Hollow Park. There is a very small piece of, I mean, I was surprised. I'd forgotten how narrow that was and how steep it was, and then the woods that are there. So I could definitely, you know, I think I wouldn't want to require a sidewalk there. I would be happy to be proven wrong that that's a bad place, and that if we were to do something after that as a city with our infill program. But I think what intrigues me is the idea of a sidewalk that doesn't necessarily follow along the street right there, but sort of connects through sort of mid-property. So, like, if you're familiar with, like, where the, was it a pavilion or little shelter and stuff is, the grade there is much smaller. Like, the distance and the height there, there's still some there. There's a grade there, but it's not as extreme as it is along the roadway. And so, again, I like the idea that city staff put forward about working with a developer to say, hey, can we connect something up through there, kind of like we've done. I was thinking of actually the project up on Rochester. I don't know if that's the same park that you were talking about earlier. But I'm happy to do that and direct city staff to sort of look for options there and see which one really does look the best from an engineering standpoint, and solve that outside of this zoning process. So those are kind of my thoughts on those issues. And then I agree with the other things that you and Councilor Alter had said about the advantages of this project that's before us. Noting some of the concerns can have some validity as well.
I'll get to your question, Josh, but I just want to kind of address the overall project and the rezoning first. Thank you to those residents who showed up, not just tonight, but to all the planning and zoning. And thank you, Megan, for noting how frustrating this is, because that is very true. This process is incredibly cumbersome and awkward and difficult. And as Oliver, you said, a lot of the power and decision making is sort of, loaded in different places. And we're in a moment here where we're so much effort and so many conversations and so much negotiation has already occurred. And while we do have the authority to pause and send it back to planning and zoning, I think that getting this property used to me is the really primary concern. And before it was even said at the podium, I wrote down the phrase "perfect enemy of the good?" Because I have seen in my time both on council and as a resident in Iowa City, projects that die by 1,000 cuts, that by the time they get here, we have 7 opinions with a lot of, things that often are representing the hopes of the neighborhood or, specific impacted property owners nearby. And those things are taken into account throughout the process. And so I'm also in favor of the rezoning now. I don't want to send it back for those 3 things to be conditions that you mentioned, Josh. I think I also have walked the site, and I agree that there appears to maybe be opportunities to connect with the park that would be not right on that sidewalk that ends, but somewhere more in the middle. And I really do think, a thing that's really difficult in this process is those who will have the chance to someday live there can't be in this room. They can't tell us what they would want. They can't tell us where they would work. They can't tell us how they would prefer to get from their home to their work, their school, their grocery store. And so I think it's really incumbent on us to listen to what we know to be true about the growth of our community that is continuing and all the benefits of this infill development.
I would like to just say that this, reflecting the words of Megan and Laura, this has been, for me, an extraordinarily frustrating procedure, because I feel like and this is through nobody's fault. I'm not placing any blame anywhere or to any particular person in the city. Every step of the way, trying to get some type of addressment of not only the concerns, but other community concerns, not just by the neighbors, but things that would be the overall benefit of the community coming from a great location like this. Every step of the way, the answer has been no, 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 no. You can't do any of that. You can't, well, maybe try it this way, but no guarantees or anything. Things as simple as, I would just like to see a connecting trail to Happy Hollow Park. Well, we're going to have to do this, that, and the other thing. And again, that's no one's fault in particular with the city. It's just how the laws are made. It's how the society that we live in clearly puts the interest of private property developers and landlords over the interests of people. And it just sucks to be caught in this process where no matter how much time I and all the other counselors have put into it, I feel like it's just been roadblock after roadblock after roadblock of trying to get some type of concession, or I don't know if concession is the right word. When we look at these types of things for rezoning, we are technically not counselors anymore. We're like little judges. I don't know if you would characterize it that way.
Quasi-judicial means we're little.
Yeah, I don't know. And so I remember first, so we are not allowed to, being able to compartmentalize these things in my mind. And this has nothing to do with my, what my decision will end up being, but we're not allowed to consider things like affordable housing. We're not allowed to consider other type of quality of life things. We just need to decide if this fits within the rules of the code. And it's been very frustrating for me. So what I would like to do is to try to come up with some type of way not connected to the rezoning for this first consideration to maybe make some type of formal direction to staff to look into some type of trail connection that leads through Happy Hollow Park, like what we've been discussing in the lower grade. I'm not sure procedurally what the best way to do that is, but for this first consideration, I would be willing to vote yes to go through that while, there's still 2 other considerations, to just go through that and see what that process looks like.
So I think this would be more of a work session that that we would come back to, and it sounds like maybe the 2 considerations, not the 3, not the retainer wall. I don't think that would be a council thing. That would be more of a developer thing and them getting back to us. But sidewalk as well as the in and out of cars, that would be something we can discuss at a work session.
Since this is a formal item, Mayor, I think it would probably be at a formal, be it the second reading, like Councilor Weinlein suggested. Now, perhaps when we were talking about sidewalk, we're talking about 2 different parts of the sidewalk. I'm aware that staff spent a good deal of time trying to figure out if there's a way to connect the sidewalk in the middle to the park. Again, because of topography, again, because of all the trees, again, because of ADA requirements, they found it not to be practical. But staff can come back and give a more full outline of that if you would like. Also addressing the traffic concerns so that you folks have a better understanding about what's possible and what's not.
And my assumption is at that point, the representative for the developer has already said they will have conversations about the retainer wall. Not that we can require that before the the end, but we would be very interested in hearing about that.
Yeah.
But I think you said even if the developer is the one who come and said, I'm going to do that, is this means it have to go back to the planning and zoning again, or no?
If you're looking for something that's enforceable, then it would need to be part of the CZA, and so that would need to go back. If you're looking for, explanation for why some of these things were not done differently, then that's something that staff can offer you, and so can the developers. But if you want a change that's enforceable, it would need to be contained in a CZA.
And what consider enforceable and what's not from everything that we said now that we would like to see?
Well, because there's a difference between what you would like to see as a council and what the developer is contractually obligated to do. That's what the conditional zoning agreement imposes, requirements. It says essentially, we will rezone this property to what you're requesting, but only if you satisfy these, 4 or 5 conditions. And so if we want it to be enforceable, then it needs to be contained there. Otherwise, we're just saying please, essentially.
If the developer came forward and said, yeah, we looked at this retaining wall, we'd like to do it a little bit differently, given the OPD, what would need to happen in order for the city to allow that change? Or the flare of the driveway, like those changes? I'm looking at our planning staff.
I am too.
And if they can come, I think some things have changed outside of something that's been at council before.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Kelly, I ruined your microphone. Danielle Sitzman, Neighborhood and Development Services. So the question is a bit of a double-edged sword. Once a rezoning is approved with an OPD plan, what can happen and what can't happen to that plan? It's a substantial change consideration that staff makes as well. So we, depending on the issue, could decide the thing that's being proposed isn't substantial and let them continue and have slight changes. Or we could decide whatever they're proposing is substantial and then they have to go back through a rezoning. So I think the example maybe we shared last time was Oak Knoll out east of the city had a site with an OPD. They had 2 buildings on it. They were under the maximum density on that site. They proposed another building. So on the one hand, the OPD said, this zoning district, that density is fine, but the plan showed 2 buildings, and so we said, nope, adding a 3rd building is a substantial change. Even though it's generally meeting the zoning, you need to go back and have this rezoned. So in the case of a retaining wall, shifting from a 1 tier to several tiers, I don't know how many tiers at this point. It's kind of an engineering
Trying to make
question.
the sidewalk work.
Right, or the sidewalk through the site or something like that. Generally, except for the fact that you all have discussed it at a great length, those would be probably minor changes and we wouldn't require rezoning. So it's a little bit of reading the room, reading how substantial it feels to the community, whether staff says it needs to go back for a rezoning or not. I mean, we could want all the things in the world about a retaining wall, but they're built to retain something and they have to physically hold up to the stresses of what they're retaining and be built that way. So that's kind of some physical limits on how a retaining wall can get designed and constructed. So I don't know those answers. I don't know in this case. I don't think the engineer knows this at that today, whether they can tell you with certainty whether tiered walls feasible or not. The write-in, or I guess it would be left in, left out, traffic driveway flares, that's a pretty simple pouring of concrete. That's not something that we would say needs to come back for a rezoning to simply be traffic engineered appropriately for that turning maneuver. That'll be something that at site plan engineering staff in the city would definitely look at and make sure is functionally correct.
And then
And
the
the
last is
sidewalk.
the sidewalk.
The sidewalk. There's 2 parts of that sidewalk. You're talking about a sidewalk either in the public right-of-way off-site, not on this developer's property, or a public sidewalk on the developer's site, some way to connect to the park. We did, just as staff, kind of discuss that as part of the review of this project. Knowing that preservation of those trees in and around the park was probably of greater value than pedestrian connection. I mean, you're talking about changing a retaining wall so you don't have to see it from the park. Putting in a sidewalk through the site would probably remove a lot of those trees that are not protected trees. They're not part of a woodland sensitive area. So we thought minimizing the impact of the trees was more important than a sidewalk, a walkway through the site at this point. So, I mean, there's always the option for a public sidewalk in our right-of-way in the future if the city wants to take that on through a council-directed action. But, the sidewalk was a complicated choice as well.
So
I don't know if that's...
in your professional opinion, can we, without affecting the zoning, or without having to go back to P&Z, can we get like a 10-foot trail that connects this property with Happy Hollow Park?
I would say no. At this point, what you're seeing in the plans and what the CZA says are what you will get. If you want something else and you want it to be binding, you have to be explicit about that and send it back to P&Z and have it explicitly returned to you with that design or that condition.
But if we as a city decide we want to make that happen ourselves, not as a requirement for the
After it's
developer.
approved, the city has no leverage to tell a developer what to do with their property once they start developing it.
Okay, I guess I'm just a little bit confused on the property line, and I don't know.
So I think what you're asking is on the side of publicly owned property, if we can create a sidewalk.
Sure. That's the city's right of way. You can do any infrastructure project you want.
So I think that is that your question? So the question
On the public right of way, yeah.
Right. So the answer to the question is yes. At any point we can do that.
Mm-hmm. So
You mean at any point, I'm sorry, Oliver.
Sorry.
Did
No,
I
you
cut
go ahead.
off? Yeah, I mean like in any point, the city, after this being approved and the developers start developing, is still if we want the city to connect the sidewalk to the park, the city can do that.
Right. In the right of way, presuming, as Jeff explained, that we have an engineering firm hired to scope that out and give you a cost estimate and you're willing to pay for and have the impact of whatever that means, yes. Like any infrastructure project.
And let me ask you another question. If this passes, and my understanding, the developer is putting it for sale, and somebody else bought it, are they required to do everything as the planning and zoning said?
They're required to do 2 things. One, they need to comply with all the rules of RM20 zone and this OP OPD RM20 zone. And also, they would need to follow all the conditions in the conditional zoning agreement. Those are conditions that travel with the land, so to speak. They run with the land, I should say. So yes, any subsequent buyer of the property would have to meet all the same requirements that the current owner would.
And if I can add, there's a time limit. So if this owner doesn't act on this OPD plan, eventually the OPD plan times out, and a new developer, if they bought it after that time had elapsed, would need to come back with a new OPD rezoning with a new plan. They'd have the base zone, so the RM20 would still be where it is, but the building design would not. The layout that you're seeing as a site plan would not be still in effect.
And with that time?
18. Sorry.
Ann Russett, Neighborhood and Development Services. The timeline that Danielle is talking about is for the preliminary OPD plan, which is part of this rezoning. That preliminary plan expires in 18 months. If the applicant moves forward with the final plat, which we've talked about, they'll probably be submitting a final OPD plan, and that kind of locks it in place at the time of approving the final. The final does not expire.
Does the final come back to us?
No, that's just an administrative review.
Yep. Thank you.
I don't know, is the council here interested of doing this sidewalk in the future?
The public
you know,
right-of-way? Oh, sorry. Yeah. The public right-of-way?
The one that
The city,
connected to
that we
the-
can do it without it being a part of the rezoning? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm totally interested in that.
And also, this is one of my concerns. I did not talk at all about this. So my concern also is the safety. I go there all the time. I saw one of the accidents. Like how certain time everything will be like, it will be traffic really between, the people are yielding to make a ride on Dodge Street, and the people who are standing governors, because that street, it doesn't have any like traffic light or anything. So it being like really traffic jam there sometime. And also like thinking about just 85, right? 84 unit? 84 unit, and how many people will be getting out like during that time. And I just can't imagine if all those people have cars. So it will be really tough. And the retaining wall is a big piece for me. And I really just think like if we can reduce the amount of the apartment unit there, will be ideal. That's what I think.
This is something that I've struggled to get, not through anybody's fault, but maybe it's my fault that I'm not understanding correctly, but our authority when it comes to Governor Street, when it comes to, let's say that it was the council's, if it was the council's want to put a crosswalk right there that goes across the street with like a flashing yellow light, are we allowed to do that because it is a state highway technically? Or what would the process be?
Any modifications would have to be run through the Department of Transportation, the State Department of Transportation. But there are universal standards for where crosswalks and different types of signage and alerts are appropriate and where they're not appropriate. I would have a very hard time believing a mid-block crosswalk in this exact location would ever meet that criteria, would ever be approved by our transportation planners or the state transportation planners. Generally, particularly on this type of roadway, they're going to want to funnel you to a intersection and do the crosswalk at the intersection.
I do want to I just want to mention that this was a very used building back in the day. So I was there when that building was highly utilized, and people entered and exited all the time. I do hear the concern And maybe I'll just make my comments now. So the sidewalk, when it pertains to the park, that's something that the council certainly can do in the future, or at any point we want to kind of entertain that conversation. So the sidewalk, at least from the public right away, is laid to rest for me. The retainer wall, as we just heard from staff, certainly, design, the way things look is very important, but also the functionality of it is also very critical. And so the retainer wall for me is something that I think will be inquired about, but at the end of the day, it sounds like it's going to be more of a structural requirement that the developers will have to move forward on. Although they heard from council, they heard from the public, and I think that they'll take that seriously and see what they can do. When it comes down to the cars leaving, certainly there is safety concerns, and that's with anything. Yes, this is turning onto a one-way. We would hope that the people that move there would realize it's a one-way, and again, a sign of some type could go there to say, one way to the left. So that in itself for me is not as great of a concern. And I would tell you that there are a lot of buildings, as we heard earlier, where there's a lot of folks gathered, where the traffic is not as great as it might sound when you have 90 units or 80 units. The traffic isn't that great. So I'll be supporting this. I do hear the concerns of the neighbors. I appreciate the concerns. But I do feel that council is hearing it. The developers are hearing it. And they are being looked into. And I do think that there are some real solutions that can happen, as well as some things that if we had to live with them, they would be, I think, acceptable to live through. Everything won't be perfect, as we know, but I feel comfortable with this. We do need all types of housing, and this is a great spot, as we've heard from various people, that this is a great spot for higher density, and so I'll be supporting this.
I guess I would just say that my main concern when it comes to traffic is more of a pedestrian concern rather than a cars.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's why I was thinking about that. So I mean the only thing that I am curious about is if there's anything that we can do right now to put some type of, rather than just kind of say like, yeah, we'll look into it next week, we promise, some type of like moving forward, some type of we will be looking into either getting an estimate on a consultant or something like that when it comes to like the public right-of-way sidewalk. Is there anything we can do right now at this moment?
A majority of you, 4 of you, can direct staff to do that and give us the time frame that you expect it. Now, I tell you, if you tell us to come back in 2 weeks, we won't be able to give you much, right? Our procurement process would take several weeks just to get somebody onboarded. Typically what would happen, and this is what happened with the Calder Park example I give you, if this rezoning passes, we would place this in the budget next fall. So we would do a CIP plan. We would try to front load this project in 2027-ish. We're going to be about a year behind, but there's also no guarantee that this development's going to start the day after you propose the rezoning. Obviously, it's listed for sale right now. So that's typically how it would work. If you feel like you need it faster than that, you've just got to communicate that you want this done as quickly as you do, and we will do our best to keep you apprised along the way. We can do that through information packet updates. We can schedule a work session. However you want to hold us accountable, we're happy to kind of fall in line.
Personally, I don't think it matters that the sidewalk gets built on the city right-of-way immediately. I think that the sidewalk that's being proposed needs to match up with something. It's not the sidewalk that goes to nowhere.
Correct.
And that whatever gets constructed is prepped for the city to add that sidewalk. And I would propose that we have some kind of proposal by the June 3rd meeting, which would be the potential third reading for this.
Yeah.
Is that?
Well, I think we can.
To study the sidewalk, like just to say, how does the city sidewalk actually interface with this thing? Because I do not believe it probably connects at the point where this current sidewalk that's designed ends.
So you're seeing more of like kind of a feasibility, not an actual plan?
That's really all we need is like some schematic design of like, how does this work or does it work? Because I don't see that current sidewalk where it stops at a cliff connecting to anything ever.
Yeah, I'm going to look at our engineering staff and see if you guys want to offer any input, since this would be falling to you.
Good evening, Jason Hovel, city engineer. I think the challenging part is going to be getting some survey and trying to get an idea of exactly what those slopes look like.
You have that survey data though, don't you, from this current proposal?
Well, it wouldn't be the full area. So, I mean, it's,
okay.
We could take a look at it. I mean, you know, just about anything can be done. I think, as Danielle mentioned, a lot of it's going to be what are the impacts. You know, you're likely looking at losing a significant amount of trees along Governor. You know, you're looking at, if not that, to try and minimize that, you're likely pushing it next to the road, which is less than ideal. So it's, you know, could you get something in there? You could. It's just, I don't know that it's going to be something that we're going to be really excited about. So I think that's going to be the trade-off we're looking at.
And the grading for the sidewalk on this site that the city doesn't own, when is the sidewalk there installed, and when does that, like, where it would connect actually need to be determined?
So, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe that the sidewalk for the site would be done as part of the site work. Now, what that would connect to, that would have to be our project whenever that would be. Otherwise, it would basically be set up for a future connection, but it wouldn't connect to anything since there's nothing there existing to tie into.
And what I'm hearing from Josh is, we know there's challenges with the slopes and the trees. Is there a way to mitigate the likelihood that there never is a connection when this land is developed, which may not be for a few years?
Again, I mean, there's the potential. You know, I mean, we could do a project to do that. I don't know that it would be something that we would push just due to the impacts and the trade-offs there, that would be something that we would naturally push to the top. If it's, you know, your direction, then we could do that. But I think it's going to be a challenging one, and it's going to be a tough one to fit in there, let alone not considering the impacts. But when you look at the impacts, I'm guessing that's also not going to be super popular to some people.
So I think just to kind of bring us to where we might be, you know, I think the reality is when there's people living on that property after it's developed, however many years from now that is, when things are complete and people are living there, they're going to make their own pedestrian access to the park, through the trees, however that works. How does the city typically address that when we see, oh, there is a significant footpath through these woods that is now impacting our park? Does that make any difference?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that would probably be the sidewalk infill program is where we would normally do that. You know, we do tend to do the ones that either have high demand, high requests, or you know, are fairly easy. You know, the more difficult ones tend to not be as done as often, a lot of times because they're the ones that face pushback.
And then would we have an opportunity with the land that is undeveloped to this immediate west of the park, south of this, a little bit further west, so not just this portion, but the portion that would like connect to Dodge Street? I mean, it's hypothetical, but the city could consider the access north-south to the park if that develops?
So if I'm understanding correctly, basically making some sort of connection to Dodge Street and having that be the connection?
Correct.
I don't recall what's there on Dodge Street. I think there's sidewalk along there. If not, we have a Dodge Street project that would install facilities there that are, if there's a gap. I believe they're there, but if there is a gap, we have an upcoming project that would get the sidewalk along Dodge Street. So that would probably be easier. And I say that without,
Right.
having it in front of me. But I think that would probably be an easier route, although, again, it would be that connection from the private property to Dodge Street would be the challenge.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry. So, hypothetically, if we love the idea of south of the development to make a trail that does not have to go along the highway, Governor does not have to go around Dodge, but we just want, it is technically on the development. Could we as a city ask the developer, can we build a sidewalk there on your property to connect it with Happy Hollow Park?
Well, normally when we deal with infrastructure, we're dealing with, connecting publicly owned infrastructure to publicly owned infrastructure. Now, that said, and so you can see my concern that here, as I understand your hypothetical, you would be connecting a city park with a city sidewalk on city property to a private development, which would have sidewalk on the private development's property. Am I understanding your hypothetical correctly?
Yes, maybe.
The issue there is it's like a 30-foot or more drop, right? The current retaining wall in that southern is how tall? Oh, okay.
Will you repeat that, please?
Yeah.
Yeah.
John, can you speak in the microphone, please?
It ranges anywhere from 5 feet to 11 feet. If I may just add a couple things related to the sidewalk discussion. Obviously, we'd need to work with Iowa City Engineering, Public Works Department, and the Engineering Department. I do think there's an opportunity there's already on the final plat, there's a proposed, I believe it's a public pedestrian easement along that side. So there might be an opportunity to work with engineering on the design of that sidewalk to better facilitate, whether it meanders a little bit further to the west as it approaches that south property line, just a little bit, enough to start to drop it down. That requires some different things from a normal urban cross-section that slopes up a little bit to the sidewalk. It's obviously something we would have to discuss, whether maybe it slopes down at 2% to pick up some elevation and push it away. So I think there's some things that could be done to try to, as we go into that final design process, the construction plans, to facilitate as best as possible council's desire, the public's desire, everybody's apparent desire to have that sidewalk connection along Governor to improve pedestrian safety, access, all the things that we've discussed.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm not sure of this question before, but with a sidewalk bend, essentially, instead of sticking close to the street, bending it, around the southeast building. Would that be something that would require an amendment at some point in the future? Like, does that have to be, if it's not part of this, the thing that we're passing tonight, or that we're being asked to pass tonight, rather, if we want to do something different with that sidewalk layout in the future, is that just an amendment that would have to process that would get us there, or are we locking in something that would keep us from doing that? Or
Well, we can't amend the CZA after you approve it, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, I just mean, like, sometimes we request for like a zoning variance or something, like when they, am I completely thinking of the wrong?
Maybe I'm not following, but once it's rezoned, council's work is done insofar as zoning.
I guess my question is, would we be accidentally preventing the sidewalk bend in the future with what's before us right now?
Oh, by ensuring that it's built in the way it's designed presently?
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm, and if so, is there, because we don't even know we want to do that, right? It's just an idea that's been tossed around. So, I don't want to accidentally shut the door on something that might be a workable idea. But so that's why I'm asking, is there a process normally through this zoning? Because this doesn't usually come to us, something that's just kind of like, hey, we're going to move this sidewalk over or change the shape by a few feet.
Again, I don't know if Danielle answered that for us as far as the wiggle room that they have.
That's kind of what I'm getting at. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Was that part of that answer? I guess I wasn't.
But typically in the wiggle room that they have, typically that's an applicant coming and saying, the applicant would like to change things a little bit.
Yeah,
What I'm hearing from you folks is that the city would like to change things a little bit.
I think what I'm getting at is if the city says, hey, we could meet you this way, and the applicant says, hey, we'd have to change our thing, can we do that, city? I mean, we would probably want to agree with that. I just want to make sure that we have the ability to do that in the future.
Oh, yes.
That's, I guess, what I'm saying. We're not boxing ourselves in accidentally.
Yeah, I mean, I've got the wrong credentials for the engineering component of your question.
I don't expect the engineering. I just mean sort of like if we decide cooperatively in the future that we want to change that, and the city says, we'll meet you then wherever that joins up at the property line, we're not preventing that from happening in the future.
No, if both parties agree, then you are not preventing that.
All right, cool. That was my only concern. Thank you.
All right. So council, any other final comments?
So are we going to be trying to have the city get back to us by June 3rd, like Josh was suggesting about, was that your?
That was what I'd suggested. I'd like to know what the Public Works Department thinks would take to get a schematic design to just.
Will you please use your mic?
Oh, I just think we need to know what the staff can do in that time between right now and June 3rd to look at it.
I'd be agreeable to that.
So let me just play that out. So if there is the information comes to us by that meeting that says, yes, you can put a sidewalk there, but in order for the grades to match, you're going to have to take down 45 mature trees and have a retaining wall that's this big, and it could cost $900,000. We would just vote down the rezoning on the third reading? Like that's the ultimate option, right?
That's not where my mind went with that. I think if we have the conclusion that, I guess I don't.
I'm just wondering what the tying it to the rezoning is. Well, because for me, timing of that analysis is not urgent, because that the sidewalk on this piece of property, if it's rezoned, isn't going to happen right away, and any connecting sidewalk that the city does isn't going to happen right away. So that's the only pushback that I have is well, yes, if it lines up, but then what do we do with that information when we receive it? I think my understanding from what Jeff was saying is we need to be able to plan to put it in a CIP, but I don't think it's as urgent as tying it to the third reading of this.
Okay.
Yeah, makes sense.
I guess sorry, I'll talk in the mic. My only thing was just as a way of holding ourselves accountable to the residents who live there, that we are actually addressing this thing in a concrete manner, and not for me, it's not tying it to the rezoning. It's just saying that, yes, we are going to do the work to see what we can do here. That's all I had in mind.
Then my question would just be, what's a reasonable time frame for staff so that they're not trading this out for other things?
Was that a question to them?
Yeah, that was a question for staff.
Well, everything's priorities, right? The team here, the engineering team, is probably managing close to 100 projects right now. So this is the busy season for them, right? Everything's getting started. They're out in the field. If this becomes a priority, something else doesn't. I'm not prepared to tell you what those impacts are. They're not drastic, but normally what would happen is we would budget for design dollars in the CIP. We would talk you through that. When we review the budget again in January, again, we wouldn't necessarily put that in year 5, knowing that this project could move forward with development. We would try to front load that in years 2 or 3 of that CIP. And along the way, we could check in with you about what those costs are. Now, that may not be acceptable to the neighborhood, right? They may want to say, you know what, I don't believe you, city, you're not going to come back in a year. And if you all want to prioritize this, then whatever time frame you give us, we'll give you the best information we can gather at the time. On June 3rd, we will not be able to give you a whole lot of information other than maybe what it's going to cost to get the survey work done and the consultant contract procured. We could probably do some tree counting estimates. And, you know, what I don't want to happen is for us to just be guessing here in the public on what those impacts are and either accused of overstating the impacts or understating the impacts when we come to build this thing. I'd rather have the precise information. So it's all a balancing act. How responsive do you want to be, and how much concrete information do you want to have to be able to continue this discussion?
For my part, before it goes to getting included into CIP as a proposed, you know, here's a piece of, here's another project that we want, I would like to know kind of impact and the lift of it. Like, what does it, how big is this? What are we talking about in terms of mature trees? So that in between, I would love to get that information in advance of it ending up being like, well, this is a proposed part line of the budget, right? So that's my.
So it does sound like.
I don't want to just go forward, sorry.
So it does sound like, well, this discussion really doesn't, it won't be tied to this rezoning. And so if council is amendable, it sounds like, you know, we can give staff some direction on, yes, we want you to look into this and, you know, bring it back, you know, add it to the work session agenda, and then again, we can bring it back when we feel like we are ready for it. But it doesn't sound like we need to continue the conversation because it's not attached to this rezoning if people are amenable to that.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think the accountability is us.
The accountability is us.
Yeah.
It's not on the developer. Yes. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this topic? Roll call, please.
Just a reminder, because of the protest petition, 6 votes are required to advance. Saleh? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your answer.
You call my.
I did call your name,
sorry.
yes.
No.
Teague?
Yes.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Mo?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-1. Can I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Burgess, seconded by Alter. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. 8B is a rezoning portion of 691 East Foster Road. Ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately .06 acres for a portion of the property located at 691 East Foster Road from high-density single-family residential zone with a planned development overlay to low-density single-family residential zone. This is the second consideration, and staff has requested, if someone can bring out material to read, staff has requested expedited action on this.
You wanted it? I can. So which one? This one?
Motion to waive second.
All right. I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Moved by Alter,
Second.
seconded by Burgess. Any discussion? And actually, I guess we go to the public for this. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. See no one in public, see no one in person or online. Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes?
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Mo?
Yes.
Salah?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to pass and adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Alter, seconded by Salah. Roll call, please.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Mo?
Yes.
Salah?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. 8C, Rezoning Zoning Code Amendment related to the form-based code zones and standards. Ordinance amending Title 14 Zoning Code and Title 15 Land Subdivision to adjust standards, increase flexibility, and clarify language related to form-based zones and standards. This is the second consideration, and staff is requesting expedited action.
So back to that. All right. I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Moved by Alter,
Second, Saleh.
seconded by Saleh. And anyone from the public like to address this topic? If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. If you're present, please step forward. Seeing no one in person or online. Roll call, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Mo,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Wyline.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to pass and adopt?
So moved, Burgess.
Second.
Seconded, Wyline?
Yeah.
All right, great. And roll call, please.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Mo,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Wyline,
Yes.
Alter.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. We're on to item 9, regular formal agenda. 9A is Rundell Street Pump Station Vault Modifications Project. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of cost for the construction of the Rundell Street Pump Station Vault Modification Project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipt of bids. I'm going to open the public hearing, and welcome.
Hi, I'm Ben from Engineering. I'm here to talk about the Rundell Street Pump Station Vault Modifications Project.
I'm not sure if you can pull that mic up closer or if it needs to be turned up the volume.
How about that? Is that better?
Yes, thank you.
So this project is located at the intersection of Rundell and Center Street, kind of in the Longfellow neighborhood. It's one of about 5 stormwater pump stations that the city has. The other 4 are actually located sort of behind flood protection down along the Iowa River. But this this pump station is actually located in a neighborhood, and it works all of the time. So whenever there's a rain event, this pump station turns on, and it keeps that intersection from flooding. I don't really know exactly why this was needed. I have a strong suspicion that they rerouted Ralston Creek back around 1910 when they installed a rail line in that area. It'd be interesting to hear if anybody would know more about that. But,
Can we do that? I'm so sorry.
So yeah, the existing pump station was built in �84. I don't know what was there before. It's got 2 vaults. The first vault handles most of the volume. It's got 2 5-horsepower pumps. And then the second vault has 2 larger pumps. They handle about 10,000 gallons per minute. Kind of a quick overview of the existing pump station. So the red square on the right are the 2 small submersible pumps, and there's a trash rack in there. Middle square is the larger pumps, and then way over on the left are the control panels and electrical work. This is kind of what it looks like from street view. You can see on the left is the vault with the submersible pumps. You can see it's causing an issue with the ADA ramps. Hard to get the grades right. And then also the hatches cause problems for snow removal for the property owner. And then the larger vault has the wood fence around it. It's my understanding that property owner actually likes the fence there. It hides the electric motors that pop up out of the station. So that will remain. What we're proposing to do in this project is to rebuild the top of that vault so that we can get ADA compliant curb ramps installed. And we're going to redo those 2 pumps. And then we're going to put in new control panels and do a little bit of flood proofing, and then rebuild all of the curb ramps at the entire intersection. So the cost is a little over $400,000. Bid it here this month and hopefully have it done this construction season, maybe with a little bit of cleanup next spring. So that's all I got.
How often do those run?
Every time it rains.
Every time it rains?
Yeah.
Even the smallest amount of rain and those are needed?
Yeah, the two smaller submersible pumps will kick on. Larger events, the larger pumps will kick on.
What will that do for folks in the neighborhood walking around and whatnot? I mean, will they be able to?
There will be
Just an easy
detours
detour?
when they have to redo the curb ramps, but it shouldn't be too impactful.
How far would you have to zoom out to make this be a passive system instead of a pump system? I mean, is that pretty epically large infrastructure project?
Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yes.
Any other questions for Ben? Hearing none, thank you. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. If you're present, please step forward. Seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Mo.
Second, Burgess.
Council discussion. Roll call, please.
Harmson,
Yes.
Mo,
Yes.
Sella,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Wyline,
Yes.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 9B, fiscal year 26 utility rates public hearing, ordinance amending Title 3 entitled Finances, Taxation, and Fees, Chapter 4 entitled Schedule of Fees, Rates, Changes, Charges, Bonds, Fines, and Penalties. This is the second consideration. Can I get a motion, please?
Move to approve, Burgess.
Second, Mo.
All right. And anyone from the public like to address this topic? Seeing no one in person or online, council discussion.
I don't know if this is something that should be brought up right now. I've been trying to rack my brain around a way to, the state really doesn't like to give us progressive ways to get revenue. Every single, most of the avenues we have are pretty regressive in nature. And that includes the state not allowing for discrimination when it comes to increasing utility cost. And by them, discrimination means we can't make a law that says if your house is worth this much money, you have to pay more or something like that. So it has to be like an across the board, everybody pays the same percentage. Something that it seems like we can do though, and I would just like to get this out in the open is, and what other cities around the country have done is surcharge for exorbitant use of water. So, and I don't know if this would fall under the discrimination exemption or prohibiting discrimination. But in other localities, they do stuff like for non-residential water users. So it's usually like industrial, like mass water usage. And the reasoning they give is to encourage them to reduce water usage for climate purposes. And so if they exceed a certain amount of water, you add a surcharge onto however many X gallons. So I just wanted to put that out there as a potential option. Yeah, I'm not sure if this was the correct time to bring that up, but I just wanted to get it out there because we're talking about increasing utility rates for everybody in Iowa City. That's a path we could research.
Any other comments about this from council?
I still would like to talk about the discount on water for low-income people, if you
I think
can.
we have it on a pending work session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to remind you guys.
I don't believe it's on a pending work session right now. There was a memo in your IP 2 weeks ago that gave some background and history. If you'd like it on a pending work session, we certainly can put it on there, but it's not currently on there.
Okay.
I think that's what we said last time. We're going to talk about it in the work session. Please, if you can, put it on the work session. would be great.
Are people amenable to a work session?
Yeah, I think maybe, Mayor Pro Tem, would you be interested in, if the council is okay with this, like maybe we can try to pinpoint what improvements you're looking for before we come to a full council discussion, like as far as the 400 and some families and what the shortfall is and that kind of thing? Would that work for you, for us to kind of like shape up the?
I always
or
say, go ahead. Somebody talking? Oh, sorry. I thought I cut off someone. Anyway, I think when I was talk about it, I talk about it from like equity perspective. What we're doing, just like we're giving the same amount for everyone right now. That what the 65% of the basic use means, because the basic use for every single children, whether they are like light family or one single person, is the same. And I see that this is not equitable. If we're really talking about equity, we need to modify that kind of discount. And I'm looking for just a percentage across the usage. It could be even a smaller percentage, not like the big percent that we have 65. It seemed like okay for the public just to see, oh, they give out 65%, but nobody know the fine details. And that's what I want to talk about, the fine details, how many people, how much it's going to cost us to do that, and to see if there's something we can do, we can do.
Well, and I think, because I want to tie it into what Oliver was just saying about like not I don't want to say encouraging, like if there is a family that is using a large amount of water, I would like for part of this to be conversations about conservation, right? And that because if we apply the full discount to more use, that's not meeting that goal, right? Like it's not taking into account that there might be opportunities for education or, just general ideas about conservation and how do we get people to use less water overall, because I think that should be part of our goals, right? To conserve water.
I'm with you 100%. Yeah. But the thing is, we can do both.
My concern is just coming back and having the same conversation we had last May, because if the memo that was in the IP just most recently, I think is framing up the same conversation we had last May. And so I just want to maybe move it a little further before we come back to a work session.
Yeah, but I really meant to do both, because educating the people, it's okay to educate the people, and after that, the discount will be less. For example, if we educate them and their bill now instead of 200 is 100, the discount will be less, because 15% from 200, not like the 15% of 100. At the end of the day, we can do both, but the discount has nothing to do with the education, because if we apply this, not because I have a discount, I will start using the water more. That's not really the idea. It's not, people are not even know that the people who need this discount, they are not watching us right now.
No, exactly.
They are not the one who are going to know what we are doing. I'm advocating for those people because I firsthand see how many people come and their water has been shut off. And I give you an example where I contacted the city for people who are being shut off for 4 days because they have $900. And and even I found out just recently, because I was looking for housing, and those people, they said there is a leak and this is not us, and the city say we give you discount for the leak once, and the landlord saying no. All this kind of thing contribute to that, like a special family, because it was like a lot. But I recently visited that house because it's for sale, and in the disclosure, I found out there was leaking, and they fixed it. So those people was right when they coming and say there is a leaking, the landlord is not fixing it, and it being for them hard. And this is not maybe going to be the greatest example, but there is many other examples where the water has been shut off. Maybe we can ask the city to bring data about how many people their water are being shut off because they couldn't pay. That's another, you can reach out to the Community Crisis Center and ask how many people know more money, come and ask for that. If you don't believe me, they come to my organization too.
Yeah.
So I really want to advocate for those people because I feel like if the city agreeing to give discount, that discount is not working. It doesn't have any equity on this. So, and I want to see like an equity on the discount that we're gonna provide. So, and it's not gonna be a lot. We subsidize a lot thing. And you know, if I start like looking at the thing that city subsidized it for business, for anything, it will be a lot. I think we can subsidize water for 400 family that they are enrolled. I don't know how many now, but last time, I think, if I can remember correctly, it was 400.
Okay. So we'll put it on a future work session. All right. Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Mo?
Yes.
Sella?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. 9C, Parking Enforcement in the Pedestrian Mall. Ordinance amending Title 9 entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Chapter 4 entitled Parking Regulations, Section 1 entitled Parking Prohibited in Specified Places to Prohibit Parking in City Plaza, and Chapter 9 entitled Towing and Impoundment Procedures, Section 2 entitled Towing and Impoundment of Certain Illegally Parked Vehicles to allow towing of vehicles parked in City Plaza. This is the second consideration, and staff is requesting expedited action.
Alrighty. I move that the rule requiring the ordinance that I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Moved by Alter,
Second, Mo.
seconded by Mo. Anyone from the public like to discuss this topic? Seeing no one in person or online, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Sella?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Mo?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Could I get a motion to pass and adopt?
So moved, Mo.
Second Wyline?
Roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Mo?
Yes.
Sella?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. On to item number 9D, 2025 Gold Bond Resolution. Resolution directing sale of $14,535,000 General Bond Obligation Series 2025A. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved, Mo.
Second, Alter.
All right, and welcome up staff at this time. Hello, Jacqueline.
Hello. Good evening, all. Jacqueline Flegel, Assistant Finance Director. We had our bond sale earlier today for our 2025 GO bonds. Maggie Berger from Spear Financial, who is our municipal advisor, is online to kind of walk you through the results there.
Great. Welcome, Maggie.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I'm Maggie Berger with Spear Financial. We did have bids received today on the $14,535,000. As you can see, we had a great sale from that letter. We are recommending the low bid from Jeffries LLC out of New York, at a true interest rate of 3.3936%. This is a fantastic rate in today's market. As part of this, we did go ahead and do your Moody's rating as we've done in the past. Moody's has reassigned and reaffirmed the AAA rating, which is the best rating that is available for the city of Iowa City. They talk about your strong economic base, that the University of Iowa sits here, plus the University of Iowa hospitals and clinic, which also have very strong ratings. We always talk about the one thing, too many drawdowns on fund balance. You know, if you start getting rid of cash for, let's say, operational purposes instead of capital purchases or capital improvements, that's always something that can change the rating. They talk about how you have a very healthy and strong fund balance. They talk about your governance being exceptional, where you have good, sound budgeting practices, and you're usually coming in better than anticipated in your budgets, which is very, very important to them. That report goes on for a couple of 3 pages. We also, again, I spoke a little bit, but you get a very high score on the governance portion. They pay real close attention to environmental, social, and governance. That G1 rating is as high as you can get. So again, they feel very confident in what the city is doing from a government standpoint. We did have multiple bids. A lot of these bidders, we had 10 bids today. A lot of these bidders are bidders that we see on a regular basis for the city of Iowa City. Again, we are asking you to award to Jeffries LLC out of New York, New York. We've given the final debt service schedule at the end, and on June 1st, 2032, and any date after that, these bonds would be callable, meaning you could refinance them to a lower interest rate if rates were lower at the time. Otherwise, you would be able to pay them off, but the call is at your option only. And that just means that if you do nothing and you just continue to pay, you would just pay them until maturity. I would answer any questions that you have.
This is a really fundamental question, but when we bond for $14,535,000, how much does that end up being in cash for the city? Or in other words, is that number that we're publishing actually the amount of money that the city has to spend, or the total amount of expenditure at the end of the rate as it matures?
Correct. So you're going to have just shy of the 14,535. So cost of issuance on this, and that includes SPEAR, that includes your bonding attorney, your rating agency, disclosure counsel who works on the actual disclosure document, is about $84,000. So again, you're going to be sitting somewhere in probably the $14,300,000 or probably $14,450,000 range is what you're going to have for actual proceeds to be spent on the multiple projects and purchases included in your capital improvements plan.
And then when our professional staff budgets, we pass a budget, what rate do we assume?
We were assuming a 5% rate. That's what we've really been seeing, and that's what we saw today. We've been assuming a 5% rate. Nicole and I always have a conversation. She's pretty savvy in the market, so she completely understands. We assumed a 5% rate through all of your budgeting. That's what we saw today. Some of the rates were 5% with 4s in the end, but overall the 5% all the way down with the amount of premium that they were going to pay the city is what was the winning bid today.
I just wanted some clarification on some numbers here. Excuse me. So I lost it. Let me go back to that other thing I was looking at. My apologies, everybody.
This one?
Yeah. So for the $14,535,000 that we bonded for, we, at the end of the day, will be paying $18,340,000. Is that correct? Because of the $3,800,000 principal or interest?
Correct. That would be principal and interest. That would be the principal and interest if you maintained and held the bonds till maturity.
Okay. Is there? I was looking through and I couldn't find some. Is this including certain fees that are involved with these transactions?
Yes, so there's cost of issuance. So again, that would be about $85,000. And that is things like your bonding attorney, the fee that you pay for Spear Financial, all the professional fees that go along with getting the bonds into the market. They do all the legal paperwork. We do the financial. We have to have, we pay Moody's rating agency. We pay Moody's Investor Services a fee for preparing the rating for the city.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I think that's the interest rate that we were paying. You said it was around 5%.
It is a 5% coupon all the way down. So every maturity has a 5% interest rate. Yes.
Okay. This is when I look at these things, it's where I'm confused. It says coupon, not necessarily interest
Correct.
rate. So I'm just trying to get some clarification and not assume anything. What was the interest rate that we were paying last year, if you remember?
You do have, it was a 5% as well.
Okay. Thank you. Those are all the questions I had.
Okay.
Maggie, this is Jeff. It might be helpful if you can just educate us a little bit on the premium and what the premium is and how that premium is used to calculate the true interest rate that the low bids are based off of.
That sounds good. So we've got the winning bidder, and all of the bidders actually gave you premiums, meaning what they're doing is saying we can resell the bonds in the market easily at a 5% interest rate. So that's that 5% coupon. But we know that the market, based on the true interest cost, which is what you are what you're approving and what you're basing the low bid upon, that is what the industry standard is. The true interest cost probably needs to be somewhere in that 3.35 to maybe 3.5% range. So to buy you down to that interest rate of 3.39 from the 5% coupons per maturity that they're giving you $1,082,566 in a premium. That is not principal that you repay. You are still borrowing the $14,535,000, but you will get the $1,082,000. You did receive a premium last year as well. You actually got a little bit more of a premium last year. You received just around $800,000 or a little bit more than that last year as well. That's really where the market has been recently, was with these 4 to 5% coupons with some sort of a premium to buy down that interest rate.
Thank you I remember we talked about, you were trying to educate me, someone who hasn't been doing this, about the premiums and what that means. So that was very clarifying. Thank you. So the true interest that we are paying is $2,722,000, around there, correct?
Correct. That's the gross interest that's being paid. Mm-hmm. The true interest is the $3.8 million, which includes the $1 million of premium.
Okay. I was just wondering, where does that money end up? The $2,700,000.
That goes to the investors who are buying these bonds. So the people that are lending you the money, that is interest that you pay to them. Bonds are sold in a secondary market, so it could be sold to financial institutions, mutual fund companies. It could be individuals that are buying these. Bonds are sold in $5,000 increments. So out of $14,535,000, there could be quite a lot of bondholders, and on each interest date, which are June 1 and December 1 dates, that's when they would receive their portion of the interest that you owe them.
All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Maggie? Hearing none. All right, we're going to go to the public. Anyone want to address this topic? If you're online, please raise your virtual hand. See no one in person or online. Council discussion.
I'd like to say thanks to the professional city staff for setting us up to borrow money as efficiently as we possibly can. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Wyline?
Yes.
Alter?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Harmson?
Yes.
Moe?
Yes.
Sella?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes, motion passes 7-0. Item number 9E, all are welcome in Iowa City. Resolution declaring all are welcome in Iowa City. Could I get a motion to approve, please?
So moved. Mo?
Second, Saleh.
Moved by Mo, seconded by Saleh. And this is an item that the Human Rights Commission recommended to the council, recommended that we adopt during their February 2025 meeting. And it is before us today for consideration. We do have Commissioner Priest who will speak here in a second. But I did want to just remind us that the county did also pass a resolution, all are welcome. And then this is before us today for consideration, and I'll leave it at that for now, and we'll be able to come back and have some discussion. I'm going to open this up for public comment, and you'll be given 3 minutes. Welcome.
My name is Mark Priest. I'm gratefully serving a second term on the Human Rights Commission. Thank you for your confidence in me. The last time I was here with you, I talked about how Jeff and Eric were helpful to me in this resolution. And I say that because what I started with, you would never have approved. The county wouldn't have touched it. It was putting a target on your back. It was scary. So that's when I went to Rachel Zimmerman, and she helped me figure out how we could get this to the county supervisors, and it was approved. So Jeff and Eric, thank you for sending up the red flag, and you have a resolution, I think, that's before you that you can approve. Last time I talked to you about I was not a Jew, I said nothing. When they came for me, there was no one left to speak. That's really very powerful in my life. My father-in-law is a Bronze Star Purple Heart veteran, now deceased from World War II. What happened in World War II is devastating in my family. So it's just years after that that I was born, and it's in that legacy that I come to you eager for this passage of this resolution. I also want you to know that we are living in a dystopian Orwellian time where we do double speak. Orwell noted war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength in his book 1984. Now before you, us has been approved by the state of Iowa is the Religious Freedom Restoration Act, as if religious freedom had ever been taken away. It simply hasn't been taken away. It's been here all the while. But now we have to deal with freedom is discrimination. So that's why we want to be firm about all are welcome, and that's what the resolution does. 2 days after the Human Rights Commission advanced this to you, the legislature and the governor removed gender identity from the Civil Rights Act, Iowa Civil Rights Act. That's in the resolution, whereas number 4, you'll have to decide if you want to leave it in there or not. I'd like you to leave it there, even though it's no longer part of the Iowa Civil Rights Act. The Human Rights Commission has a statement against removing it, but I'm running out of time. Please approve this resolution. Defer to you as to what you want to do with the language. Thanks very much again for allowing me to serve.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address this topic? Yeah, Mark is from Iowa City. Welcome.
I'd like to address the topic. My name is Mary Gravitt. I'm from Iowa City. And I see the sign, when I first came in, the sign, racial.
I'm right there. Got it. That's right, Mary. I saw it too.
Thank you. It says racial equality and social justice. I think the word racial should be removed, because with Elon Musk and his muskrats running all through our government, redesigning it, and Trump, who does nothing but take advice from people who never know what they're talking about. So in other words, they can use this word racial against the city of Iowa City because they're picking at to destroying things. Equality, social justice, and human rights is enough, because you know what it means: equality, social justice, and human rights. So you have to be careful with words, because this one word, racial, this is what shocked me when I saw this sign and came, racial. That's dangerous, because DEI means racial and white women. Because people don't realize this, they're just reversing the I'm getting tongue-tied. Equal rights amendments and so on and so forth. So they want to put white women out of the body politic and back in the kitchen. And the blacks and the browns have already been taken out of the body politic. You know, when they go after DEI. You know what they're talking about, unless you just totally, I don't know, just brain dead. So why let them get you with that one little word, racial equality? You know what equality means. You know what racial means. So I'm just recommending that word be removed from your sign. I like the sign. You know, it's nice. But why set yourself up for what you know is coming? Elon Musk and those muskrats have shown us something. I've never seen the United States government like this. And I don't even know if we're still in the United States. He might have moved us to Mars. He's so interested in going to Mars. Maybe we all been moved, you know? So that one word is dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no one else, council discussion.
I just want to thank the Human Rights Commission for getting this in front of us. And as to the question of what the Iowa Civil Rights Act says as of now, when we would be passing this resolution, it does protect gender identity, and I think it's appropriate to leave it in.
Because it doesn't go
into effect until
Yes.
July. I agree.
Agree. Yeah, I'm very comfortable as it stands. And thank you also. Thanks.
I did just want to read now the bottom of this resolution, because I think it really does speak to the heart of this community. And it says, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of Iowa City, Iowa, that 1, the City of Iowa City is committed to promoting a united vision where all are welcome in Iowa City, and further commits Iowa City to being a discrimination-free community. We recognize our responsibility to foster a community that actively works towards inclusivity, equity, and the protection of rights for all, even as we acknowledge the ongoing nature of this work. And item number 2 is, be it further resolved, the City of Iowa City encourages businesses, housing developments, and landlords, nonprofit organizations, houses of worship, educational institutions, and neighborhood associations to unite in the message, all are welcome in Iowa City, Iowa, and declare themselves as a discrimination-free partner. And if this is approved, this will be passed and approved on this day of May 6, 2025. So this, to me, really does speak to the heart of this community, which I'm so happy, as I know all of us are, happy to be a part of. Roll call, please.
Alter,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Harmson,
Yes.
Moe,
Yes.
Silla,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Wyline.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right, thanks. We are on to item number 10, which is announcements of vacancies new. 10A is Public Art Advisory Committee, Art or Design Professional. 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment through December 31st, 2025. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, June 10th, 2025. Could I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So move. Sorry.
Second, Alter.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item number 11 is announcements of vacancies previous. 11A, Airport Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 4-year term. Community Police Review Board, 2 vacancies to fill a 4-year term. Historic Preservation Commission at large, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission Brown Street, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission Jefferson Street, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission Summit Street, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Housing and Community Development Commission, 2 vacancies to fill 3-year terms. Library Board of Trustees, 3 vacancies to fill 6-year terms. Planning and Zoning Commission, 2 vacancies to fill 5-year terms. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, one vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Airport Zoning Commission, one vacancy to fill a 6-year term. Board of Appeals, HVAC Professional, one vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Historic Preservation Commission, Jefferson Street, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, Woodlawn Avenue, one vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Vacancies will remain open until filled. Now we are at item number 12, which is City Council information.
Just want to say that I got to join the mayor recently for a recognition for the staff, volunteers, and donors for the senior center. It was held out at True Blood, and was an amazing event, and highlighted some of the real accomplishments that that facility has made, and the people that work and volunteer in that facility have made. I got the chance to talk with several people, and one of the recurring themes was people that had lived lots of different places around not just the state but around the country, and said with unprompted that this was the best senior center that they had ever had the pleasure of interacting with, and they were just so happy to have that as something that was helping them, in their 55 plus years or age 50 plus years or whatever it is. So,
Councillor Harmsen and I will be present at the Public Works Open House on Sunday, May 18th from 1 to 3 for our listing post. So come visit us up at the dump.
All right.
That's a great bumper sticker.
Kelly, please update the ad for that.
All right, hearing nothing else?
Sorry, my bad. I'll let you all go in just a second. So on Monday, I was able to get my shift covered and go to Des Moines because there was, I know we're all unfortunately familiar with the 4 students at the university who not only just without provocation had their visas revoked. These are immigrant students. They also had their student status terminated, and were told, amongst other things, that one of their options was to leave the country. And I don't know if everybody's been following this directly, but they filed, they were approved a restraining order in federal court in Des Moines, and they just got another extension on that restraining order. So it was a very good thing. The staff, or the attorneys who argued for our students, did an extremely good job. It was no contest. I mean, DHS could not. They were doing a bad job because their arguments were terrible. So I just wanted to say that happened, and I was very happy that happened. I also want to say just a really big thank you to city staff for working with us and getting regular trash can service out to one of the larger homeless encampments in town. They were requesting trash can service for quite a while, and we were able to just kind of like get it together and get some stuff out there. And I went and talked with a lot of those residents, and they were extremely happy for those trash cans out there. They're able to clean up after themselves without having to walk by the highway a long ways to get their trash. So they're all very happy about that. Thank you so much, staff. It means a lot to them.
And it will be also added to the regular route for picking up trash?
Yep, it's on a regular route, as far as I know. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Great. Awesome. Ruby. Okay. We're going to move on to item number 13, report on items from city staff. City manager's office.
No update tonight, thank you.
City attorney.
No, thank you.
City clerk. All right. We're at item number 14. Could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved, Mo.
Second.
All right. Moved by Mo, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem, because she's right here to my left in my ear. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned for the night. Good night.